Many people associate Dublin, Ohio as having an Irish background or Irish heritage, when actually the truth is that Dublin was settled by Germans. Many German families who came to Dublin, the Carrs, the Horches, the Ashbaws, Lepperts. John Sells is the one who bought what we think of as a historic district. The Sells family, they searched for land in this area. They probably went all up and down the Scioto River. As they did that, they would encounter surveyors who recommended this particular site. It's the highest point on the Scioto River, so it was not going to flood, and it had particularly good natural resources, timber, rock, and fields to build a small settlement. Between then and 1810, John Sells decided to stay right there. And in his piece of land, he decided he was going to set up a village. He needed a surveyor to help him do that. He knew John Shields. John Shields was well known, so they sketched this out, and the story is, you laid it out, you get to name it, he told John Shields. And John Shields says, well, if I have the honor to name the town, I'm going to name it after my hometown because of the green valleys and the blue waters, and it reminds me of my hometown of Dublin, Ireland. And that's how Dublin got its name.
The area is well established enough that when the Ohio General Assembly is looking for a site for a new state capital other than Chillicothe, where the capital was, to be located somewhere in central Ohio, the Sells Plantations comes to be one of those areas that the legislature will consider. They considered other places as well, places like Circleville and Delaware and Newark, Franklinton, which was the small settlement at the forks of the Scioto, and so on. A committee established by the legislature to find that new home actually selected the Sells Plantations as the place where they'd want the capital. And then the Ohio General Assembly, as it is wont to do, calmly ignored the recommendations of its committee and established the capital at the forks of the Scioto.
Now the colorful story is, which I like much better, is that it was a poker game, and the last two contenders were Franklinton and Dublin. And John Sells and there's a Dr. Smith from Franklinton. And Dr. Smith is the one who calls the hand. And John Sells smiles because he has 3 kings, a 10 and a 2, and lays down his hand, thinking, I've got this, we are the capital of Ohio. And Dr. Smith lays down 3 aces and walks away with the legitimate capital of Ohio. So we came in second, but maybe that's not so bad. Dublin was on the Granville, the Greenville stagecoach line, what we think today of as Route 33 or 161.
In the house that sits right on the southeast corner of the square today, that was one of the very first stagecoach stops there was in Dublin.
You could get a meal there and stay overnight. If you were lucky, you got a bed. If you didn't get there in time, you could still sleep on the floor, but at least you were inside and dry.
Dublin is not exactly as it emerges initially one of the most peaceful places in the world. It is a place with a lot of taverns, a lot of bars, and a lot of rough folks.
Dublin actually was declared one of the toughest towns there was in the area. You better be careful when you came to Dublin to be prepared that you might end up with a fight with someone.
Partly maybe because it was a quarry town. The town transitioned from agriculture into quarrying. People were working in those quarries. It was a dangerous job. To work that off, they went to the bars and they got into fights.
I understand it was kind of a rough town in the early days, probably like the Old West a little bit. You know, they didn't really know how to control themselves or something. And when they got drunk and so they would just do whatever they wanted to do.
There was a limerick or a sort of a rhyme that people used to sing here that said, Dublin, Dublin, city of beautiful roses, gouged out eyes and bloody noses. If it weren't for your solid rock foundation, you'd be gone to hell and damnation. And they used to sing that in the bars. That was Dublin's reputation. In the 1850s, it was so bad that the village council voted themselves dry for a number of years, then relaxed that after a while.
My
great-grandfather was a blacksmith, and the village then was a service community to the area of farmers. If they needed supplies or blacksmith repairs, they would come to Dublin.
It was a thriving town because we could support the farmers. Anything that's going to help a horse stay in business. So harness makers, saddle makers, livery stables. Then anybody who's going to help a farmer stay in business. There's people making clothing, hats, work shoes, work clothes. It wasn't a rich town, it wasn't a wealthy town, but the town took care of one another.
Being a place where farmers came for business, they of course came by horse and buggy, and the horses needed water. For many years, people just had to carry their water up from the spring. So sometime in the 1880s, they drilled a well. And to make it accessible, they put it in the middle of the intersection of Bridge and High. It was used for many years until around 1925. Horses were smart enough not to run into it, but people driving cars would run into it.
They finally built a cement encampment around it, but then the trucks and buses would hit it.
The state said you have to take the pump out.
That town pump sort of symbolized a gathering spot for the village. And a few years ago, the city was persuaded to install some public art at that corner. It's there now. It's called Daily Chores. It's a young lady at the pump with a bucket, and her little brother is helping her pump. People that shop around the historic district can see that at that corner where the well used to be.
The first 150 years, we didn't do anything. It just didn't grow.
Dublin was a community of like 200 people. You know, we're not talking about a lot of people. There were 3 grocery stores when I was growing up. Then we had service stations. There used to be a drugstore that stood there. There was a beauty salon in Dublin. And then Shriver's owned the building on the southwest corner, which was Shriver's Confectionery.
And then, of course, we had a post office. Just the things that they would have in a rural community.
And then across the river, on the opposite side, on Riverside Drive, was a Dublin nightclub. And this was developed by Deloise family, came from Italy. And it started out as a barbecue restaurant, and then they turned it into the Dublin nightclub.
If they had a banquet of any kind, that's where they held it. And of course, a lot of our friends lived on farms, and they didn't get to come to town very often, only on Saturday. The school activities, though, and church activities are what brought them.
Between the school and church, that was the social life in Dublin. And the river.
The beauty part about the river was everyone used it for whatever purpose. Swimming was one of the major things that we did during the summer months.
We had to be very careful because the boys, when they would swim down there, they didn't wear any bathing suits, and they washed down there. That's where they took their baths, I think. So we had to be very careful. We did swim, though, when the boys would let us, at the Old Rock.
That was our swimming hole. There were a lot of things that went on there besides just swimming, but it was a place to play.
So the river has always played a great role in the activity of people that lived in the community.
In the 50s and 60s, Dublin was very much like it had been for 100 years. It was still a population of about 400 people. What changed it was the development of the interstate system, and particularly the outer belt around Columbus.
They began to talk about the outer belt, and there was a lot of discussion whether or not they would use the 33. And the people that were here, they were very vocal. Many of them did, let's stay the way we are. Let's stay small. Well, as it worked out, Ashland Oil came, bought the land on France Road.
Locating that headquarters here with good jobs, high-educated scientists helped our schools. They worked with our township to influence ODOT to put in an exit and ramp at 270. The other thing was happening was Jack Nicklaus, who had recently won the PGA at Augusta, was thinking, wouldn't it be great to have a tournament of the similar kind up and near his hometown? in Upper Arlington. So he was searching for a place and found one in what we now call Muirfield. So he had selected that in the late 60s and was starting to develop that into a golf resort and golf course. As Dublin continued to develop, other companies came in. Wendy's moved from over their first location on Henderson Road over to Dublin. Cardinal Health located here. OCLC has been a long-time resident in Dublin. So a lot of things came together in a very short time to put us on a trajectory that put us to where we are today.
When I was in school, our colors were always crimson and white, not emerald and white. We never even considered Dublin being Irish. The name is, I guess.
But then we started naming streets, and all of a sudden, everything was Irish.
The whole Irish thing does give Dublin a sense of place and a sense of identity.
I used to work the Irish Festival, and I remember, I think the first one, that we had some musical groups that came, and they were talking to us and saying, "Now, how many Irish do you have here?" We didn't think we had any. I say, in August of every year, there's 3 days we're all Irish.
The Irish Festival itself and its growth has become a great way to bring the community together. It gives us a touchstone. Even though we're not Irish, we're still Dublin, Ohio. And for those 3 days, it's a heck of a party.